All Progressives Congress accuses convener of the Big Ten coalition and political economist, Professor Pat Utomi, for unilaterally declaring shadow government in a presidential democracy. Describes action as reckless. Professor Utomi joins me on the program for that conversation. And more defections as Adamu Lokoja, a member representing Suleja, Gurara, and Tafa Federal Constituency, dumps the PDP for the All Progressives Congress. Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. It's the weekend edition of the program, and it's a beautiful Friday where we look through and sift through literally what's playing out in the polity and in politics. As always, we'll bring you up to speed, so just take your time, relax, and enjoy the ride with us. But one big conversation that we will be having today has to do with some of the disagreements between the ruling party and some other persons who are not in the ruling party today on the program, as far as the position and the management of the state of affairs of our country is concerned. One thing is central, whether those in government and those outside the government, everybody perhaps wants the betterment of Nigeria. How we approach it is different. And there have been these tons of words of war. But before we get to all of that, let's also tell you that on the other part of the program, a few weeks ago, we saw the mass defection from the PDP to the APC, beginning from the governor of Delta State, his deputy, and literally a retinue of a lot of people moving in. But the question now is the people that are in the APC, some seem not to be quite happy with that development. We will talk to that part of the conversation yet again today on the program. But let's tell you that one of the things that happened today is another defection. A member from Niger State, Mr. Adamu Lokoja, defecting from the People's Democratic Party, I should say, to the All Progressives Congress, giving reasons. And of course, it was received today by the Niger State Eastern Zonal Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Danladi Ahuja, who said joining the party is an investment.
As we all know, the APC is undertaking a significant transformation in Niger State. We can say in the history of Niger State, we have in place a transformational leader, a leader that's one of a kind, that we don't have any option other than to rally around our governor to give him all the needed support in order to continue to do what he's doing for Niger State.
APC is a good product. Basically, we've become the darling of politics. Every opposition is coming in because everybody is seeing the future in APC. So we call this investment. This transition we are witnessing today is an investment for any wise politician who wants to really partake in the future of tomorrow.
All right, so it looks like this is the season of defection. We don't know how long this is going to last, but it looks a lot more like more people are moving to the APC than moving to any other party. APC is the ruling party, and people have said this as a result of a plethora of reasons: instability in other political parties, coercion, using the instrumentality of state by the APC against some of these members, bribery. There are all kinds of allegations. But we're going to look at all of that today. Professor Pat Utomi is my guest today on the program. Now, there's been this war of words between Professor Pat, in that sense, and the All Progressives Congress. So let's begin with the very first one. And a series of things the professor has said on his Twitter handle. I remember him saying that, I do not believe Nigerians feel, I do not believe Nigerians, okay, I wanted to see that. That's, okay, let's go back to the other one. I do not believe Nigerians feel about each other the way hired social media goons make them to be. In encouraging chaos so they can hold on to power, they spread this untruth. Having been born in the north, raised in the west, and nourished east side, I know different. So there were so many things the prof had said about the state of our nation, dissent on hostility to dissenting voices and all of that. But, well, the APC, not lying low, has also responded to the prof. And Felix Moka, who is the National Publicity Secretary, and one of the things he raised is about the fact that the prof has called for what he considers a shadow government. Now, the suggestion that President Bola Tinubu's administration is suppressing views is simply preposterous. Utomi's unilateral declaration of a shadow government in a presidential democracy is in and of itself an exercise of democratic freedom and free speech. So that's the response of Felix Moka on behalf of the All Progressives Congress. Well, the Prof also responded as well to this particular release by the APC, saying, I have never seen a democratic government panic so much because citizens are getting together to make rational requests on how they are carrying out the agency function. Wow, there must be so much to hide. Scrutiny frightens them. How do we sink so low? So I'm just trying to pick out the words here. So that's been the back and forth between Professor Pat Utomi and, of course, the All Progressives Congress in the last 24 hours. Prof will be joining us, but we'll go for our political roundup stories, and we'll get to that very conversation for the day. What exactly does the Prof mean by unilateral or shadow government in that sense? Did he really declare that in that sense? And what exactly did he say further that is making the All Progressives Congress uncomfortable? We'll talk about that after this. But let's bring your political roundup stories.
Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court in Abuja has adjourned the hearing of a suit instituted against the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to June the 26th for ruling on the request of the EFCC to cross-examine the third witness and for continuation of trial. Justice Nwite adjourned the hearing after listening to addresses by the prosecution and defense counsel on the prosecution's move to cross-examine the witness, a position that was rejected by the defendant's lawyer, Joseph Daudu. Shortly after the defense concluded the cross-examination of the witness, the EFCC's lawyer, Kemi Pinero, moved to also cross-examine the commission's witness on Exhibit 19. Counsel to the defendant, however, drew the court's attention to the fact that the prosecution counsel's position was unknown to law in line with the Evidence Act. Justice Nwite subsequently adjourned to June the 26th for ruling on the EFCC's request and continuation of trial. Members of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, in Ayamelum local government area have held a mega rally, reaffirming their confidence in Governor Chukwuma Soludo's administration. Addressing party supporters, the local government mayor, Mr. Alphonsus Ofomelu, urges them to stand firm and ensure that Governor Soludo is returned as governor of Anambra State for the second term in office. A support group of suspended governor of Rivers State under the aegis of vociferous Rivers women are calling for peace and reconciliation between all warring parties in the state. This was their message earlier today in Port Harcourt when they gathered at the Ecumenical Center to pray for peace in the state. Speaking on behalf of the group, Ann Kyo Briggs questioned the fate of the state as May 29th, which is the governor's second-year anniversary, approaches.
We Rivers women support the process of peace and reconciliation and urge the National Assembly oversight committees on the implementation of the emergency rule to engage with the relevant stakeholders on how to broker peace among the gladiators.
The Joint Admission and Matriculation Board has announced the release of the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination results. The registrar of the board, Professor Ishak Oloyede, who made the announcement at the headquarters of the board in Abuja, disclosed that the results of 39,834 candidates is being withheld for various infractions. Professor Oloyede explains that the seizure of results is owing to suspected examination malpractices, just as 80 individuals are being probed for examination-related offenses, with Anambra State having the highest number of 14 suspects. The JAMB registrar adds that 467 underage candidates scored above the minimum benchmark, while 50 others were found to be involved in examination fraud.
All right, let's get to our very first conversation for today. Professor Pat Utomi, who is the convener of the Big Tent and also a political economist, joins us from the United States. Prof, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Well, it's a great pleasure.
All right, Prof, it's been an interesting, let's say, 78, 24, 48 hours between you and the APC. I read the statement by Felix Moka responding to some of the things you said, say you are unilaterally declaring a shadow government, using words I don't want to repeat on television. But Let's get your initial reaction on some of the things you read from Felix Morka's statement.
I don't want to talk too about Felix Morka. It will be disturbing of my sense of properness. Felix Morka is somebody I consider a friend. He used to spend a lot of time in my house. One of the sad things that politics has done in Nigeria is that it has allowed us to see the sides of people that we did not think was possible. If we could only focus on issues, it will save us where we've come to in Nigerian politics. But there is a tendency to go ad hominem in the culture of the APC. If you get on the internet, one of the things you read there that I was saying about being born in the North, school in the West and all of that, and knowing Nigeria. If you got on social media, you would think Nigerians are haters of each other because the venom with which they're insulting people. This is Nigeria I grew up in. At Nsukka, as an undergraduate, they called me Yoruba boy. People didn't realize that I was actually Igbo because 80% of my friends in Nsukka were Yoruba boys. And my politics have always been around Southwest type things. So to come to where we are in Nigeria today, for me, mentally, it's just not possible to reconcile it. Is this Nigeria that I know? Is this how people think of each other? It's not. So, it's clear that politicians have accentuated identity politics to be able to achieve personal goals. They don't seem to realize how much it has destroyed the country, torn its fabric, such that it makes achieving goals very, very difficult. It's like shooting yourself in the foot. But I don't know what their goals are. So I don't want to speak to Felix Morka's comments in any personal way. Let's take on the issues that he's brought up. First of all, about
the shadow government.
Shadow government being, what did he say it was?
In a presidential democracy.
Yeah. Nothing can be more democratic than a group of citizens getting together to say, let's find a structured way of asking governments to be more accountable. What could possibly be more democratic than that? I like to usually preface this conversation with what we've done to the African. There is the Afrobarometer annual surveys that have gone on since 1999 of how Nigerians, Africans generally, but in every country specific, with all kinds of details. I mean, I want every Nigerian who really wants to understand what has happened to our continent to go and study the Afrobarometer readings. It says that Africans still love democracy, cling on to it, but they have given up more or less. They're tired because their democracies are not working. Now, any really serious Democrat has to be concerned to read this data, longitudinal, showing that people are fed up with what we call democracy. So trying to make democracy find renewal, find revival should be something that any true Democrat would embrace. My expectation is that something like this will be, hailed by the APC, especially if you go back to the roots of the APC. I mean, I don't want people to forget history. But how did the APC start? Felix Morka used to come and run around with me in the early days, stay in the back of my car and tell me things. That's one of the things I'm doing now. Felix Morka used to be the one urging me that I should be doing them. So it's sad. But in those early days, when the PDP was talking about it will be in power for, 60 years or some of us began to get worried. That's where this whole thing started. The leadership newspaper, in, I think it was 2012, then had as his annual lecture political parties and invited me to give the keynote. It was in Ladi Kwali Hall at the Sheraton in Abuja. That day, almost all of those who formed the APC were sitting on the high table, from the man who's in the villa now, Buhari, everybody. They were all lined up there. And I took time to go through what a political party was and why it is valuable to the democratic process. As I said in another program that I appeared on not so long ago, I went back to the original 1911 book, actually, on political parties, and then brought it to now, the ideas, the values, and the vision of society that the party captures essentially is what directs society's path. If you are trying to achieve a certain goal and people are defecting the way you've reported now, the question is, how are we going to have a public conversation with people who, we really don't know exactly what they believe in? So that is the first problem. Political parties are not political parties in our country. Now, because political parties are not political parties, the only thing that matters is personal ambition. And one of the saddest parts of what has happened is that they've pushed thinking out of the door. Anybody who thinks is an enemy, and they must use personal insults. Somebody who came presenting the party on another program I appeared on no more than 2 hours ago said that, I was an unstable person or some silly thing like that. And that, in fact, in my home state, the people in the current government were trying to defect, or I don't know if they've defected or not, that they know that Labour won the election. This was an APC person saying they know Labour won the election, governorship, everything. So that is because they know they didn't win the election. That's why they're trying to come to APC. So I said to the interviewer, look, I don't have to talk anymore. This man is making my case while abusing me. The point is that our democracy doesn't have meaning. The purpose of serving the people has been lost. It's about these individual games for power. And that's what the whole idea of citizens getting together to establish rational public conversation, which is what the idea of this so-called shadow government is.
Okay, maybe we'll talk about how it intends to operate in that sense. Maybe you can just help us, because I'm sure that perhaps why Felix Moka is saying what he says, for instance, in parliamentary system, that is as clear as crystal. In a presidential system, is it just having a strong opposition, viable opposition? How does it work?
It depends on what presidential system. That the people are how government is being run. Well, if you can bring together a group of people who believe in similar things and can organize themselves well enough to be able to ferret out information, first on what government is doing, second on options to what government is doing, and then make those bear to the people, you would have added huge value to democracy. But their panic is that they don't want conversation at all. When I talked about fascism, I didn't start saying that today. Look, you go back and read Jacques Ellul on propaganda, and you see how propaganda systematically leads to fascism. And that's why I keep referring to Goebbels and how Hitler emerged. I mean, the great fascists of this world were populists who cared for the people. But once you hear your voice long enough and no other voice, after a while, people who are near you say, you are God. And you say, well, really? In fact, I'm more than God. Who is God self? And that's what a proper democracy helps you prevent from happening. And so the way we will operate as a shadow team is to meet at an interval like 2 weeks. Each shadow team member who has watch on some aspect of governing will present the state of the nation in that area, the latest policies from government, how it is working, what has not gone right, what better options there are, and we will debate it, discuss it, and put out a public statement about that situation. That is what this is about. Any rational, normal person who thinks this is undemocratic should please come forward and tell me how that can be. The Nigerian constitution, as terrible as we have called it, guarantees this conduct. It doesn't say there's a shadow cabinet. It doesn't say there's no shadow government. shadow cabinet is just nomenclature of a group of citizens who have said, we want government, which is an agent of ours. And the first thing in agency function is accountability to those who make those agents. So we, the citizens, have asked these people who we ostensibly voted for to be our agents, and they have an obligation to come back to us and tell us, look, this is how they've used our powers to do this on our behalf. Because that is not happening in our system, we need to make it happen as citizens that are committed.
All right, Prof. I think now that there's clarity, maybe Moka, I will be looking out for, maybe I'll send him a message and say, now that it is clear, what's your response to Prof? I'll send him a message after this. Now, I'm sure he will be listening, or his people will be listening.
I had so much respect for Felix.
So
he came from a... Anyway, let's leave that.
Okay, so let's get to some of the issues, and I want to ask some direct questions, Prof. One of my first direct question is, what is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu doing wrong? And where do you see that wrong action taking us to?
You see, again, you come to an area that I don't want to personalize things. Let's take policy, specific policies, and look at how they have been implemented, how they have not worked. And I can speak to how that is not going the way. And in my statement, I dealt with a number of them. Look, let's take the issue of pain. The people are feeling pain. In our country, people are really dying, suffering. There's hunger in the land. The way government carries on, you will not believe that is the case. And I use examples. When the government bought a befitting presidential jet, we had a lovely 737 presidential jet, but we bought a more befitting one at a time when most of our citizens could not act out a bare human type survival. In our history, you can go back to 1976. As a young youth corps back then, we gave General Obasanjo hell for small things. But look at the kinds of things that he did. When oil prices dropped a few notches, he said that we could not afford to live the way we were living, that we had to cut our coat according to our cloth, not according to our size. He came down to a Peugeot 404 as the official state car. We know of a president in this world who drives around himself in his Volkswagen Beetle in Latin America. What is wrong with going even in your SUV? Why spend the kind of money we've spent buying this beast, or whatever they call that monster that is now a new presidential car? Not talk of new jets. You can't be doing things like that and ask people to sacrifice. No, you lead by example. But it seems like the Nigerian political class thinks that it should be given everything to live luxuriantly at the expense of a dying people. That is not acceptable to me as a citizen. And I think that we must reverse those kinds of ways of thinking about public life.
Prof, we got here because of two policies. Removing subsidy from PMS, removing subsidy from FX in that sense, and now for Band A people, that subsidy is also gone in that sense. What could he have done differently? I mean, as a policy direction, because the argument they also have is to the effect that all the frontliners had made similar promises.
Yeah, which is one of the big lies about that. And I want to give a clear example. You see, petroleum subsidy was a source of big abuse. Now people go back to say, you see, you fought it under Jonathan. When the thing was fought under Jonathan, the point I personally made in 1911 or 12, when the demonstrations were taking place, is it is not about removing subsidy. It is the corruption that is called subsidy. Part of the reason they were doing it around that time is elections were approaching. They wanted the so-called marketing companies to take the advantage of this so-called subsidy thing to fund the PDP. You can play games whatever you like or not. is the corruption that I've always criticized. Subsidy is 70% corruption. If you really are serious, okay, this government is unfolding all kinds of things in NNPC. Haven't I been shouting about this for forever? I, on this channel, said a couple of months ago that NNPC was the most opaque organization in the world. Now, if we just seriously went and said, first thing, let's deal with the scam in this so-called subsidy, we would have removed 60% of what we call subsidy. Then we say, okay, having removed that, we don't want subsidy. What is left? How can we sequence the implementation that it does not trigger the kind of inflation that it did trigger? Yes, it will cause some inflation, but how can we manage it? So sequencing is a very critical part. Look, I was very involved in policy when we went through the structural adjustment program, and we talked about the J curve and all those lags. This will now kick in. And all that turned out to be a significant lie. It didn't kick in because there were many aspects of the process. And this is the new book I'm writing now, Why Some Nations Are Still Poor. Now, one of the most important things to put into the equation of an adjustment program of that nature is how to create markets. Clayton Christensen, with one of his former Nigerian students, Ojomo, and another of his students, wrote a book, The Prosperity Paradox. We have to focus on how do we create markets and how do we build entrepreneurs. It is those people who then fill in this pipeline. It is nothing automatic at all about, oh, you remove subsidy, this, and then economy will be good. It's lie. You create entrepreneurship, generate production, and with the production, as the pain is being felt, jobs being created, the exports that are taking place, providing foreign exchange, and you have a more balanced thing, and you grow your way out of that challenge. But not to have a strategy that includes all of this, it's a waste of time.
All right, Prof. One of the counter-arguments they always have at the macroeconomic level, they say when you look at our macroeconomic dashboard, it looks better than the administration of Muhammadu Buhari. So they pick up things like increase in FX reserve. They talk about, of course, we've cleared this IMF, although I think the charges are still there, but they've talked about this IMF within default. They've also talked about the issue of using some of these funds for NEL fund. They also talk about record high revenue for subnationals through FAC. And a couple of other things they reel out as some of the gains in that sense of the removal of some of these subsidies. But it's going to take a bit of time, just like you said, for it to come to fruition. And so Nigerians should just calm down in that sense. Does that argument make sense to you?
And I am telling you that that's the same argument all of us made in 1986, and it didn't happen. Because the lag, so-called J curve, doesn't just turn. We found that it didn't turn. And this is why I'm writing this book now, to show that it doesn't turn. Because we've not created entrepreneurship. We've not created markets. We have not raised production. As far as I know, Nigeria is not producing even to deal with the situation with food insecurity. Because there is insecurity in the land, the farmers are not going to the farms. Even many farmers have forgotten how to farm because insecurity has kept them away already for 7-8 years from farming. So they don't even know how to farm anymore. So a massive program that begins to re-teach farming, provides incentives, provides security for these people to now grow, and systematically says, okay, look, there's hunger in the land. There's certain things if we focus on, it will take 5 years, but there are food crops that grow in 3 months. So let's take these legumes and massively support people, military protection, bang, in 3 months, food plenty. While they are eating, you are dealing with the other kinds of produce that we need to deal with. But I don't see any of that. You are not going to get anywhere unless there's enough entrepreneurship, unless there's enough markets being created, and they should know. They should go and talk to Ojomo and the Prosperity Paradox people.
All right, Prof. As we begin to wind down, I know I read part of your tweets where you talked about let's not end up like the Rwanda situation. Some may say, oh, that's extreme. But one of the things you were calling out for are the elites, who you say are complicit in pervading some of the things you're not comfortable with in terms of policy direction. Who are you really speaking to?
I'm speaking to all of those people who pay all these goons on social media to insult people. And I'm glad I saw Judu's writing on it. They are making people hate. They are making people bitter in our country. And we're not bitter people. You check my profile. 80% of my best friends come from another ethnic group. And for me to wake up one day and actually see that everything I say is viewed from the ethnic group that I so-called come from. In fact, it's interesting that many years ago, Femi Falana said to me, don't go and run in Delta. You are more of a Lagos person. You know, we must deal with this identity politics thing and destroy it. Run for Senate in Lagos. Many years ago, Femi Falana asked me to do that. Well, at the point, was not even going to run for anything anymore until some people dragged me and pulled me and said all kinds of things that made me go to Delta. Let me make a Sherman declaration here. Because, you know, one of the things that people who don't think like to think is that everybody thinks like them. And because the thing that drives them is power, position, money, they think everybody else is driven by that. Let me state clearly here that I will not run for public office. I will not accept an appointment. I will not accept a contract by any government in Nigeria. My only concern, my commitment is the well-being of the next generation. I have literally lived my life, and thank God I've lived it decently without government money or stealing anybody's thing. And I want to take that away from people who talk nonsense about, oh, he's looking for a contract, he's looking for position. President Yaradua and the people who were sitting with him when he invited me to become a member of his cabinet are alive. Offered me a position, and I said to him, sorry, I am not looking for a position.
Okay.
I am a patriot. You can call me anytime you want, and I'll give you the benefit of my position. So I think that these people are destroying a country, that fomenting hate to sustain power is not a good thing. And history will question them, their consciences will question them, and ultimately God will question them.
Prof, I wish I had more time to explore some of the things you've talked about, but I must thank you so much for making our time to join us on the program. And I'm sure the APC and the ruling government, they've heard you, they've listened to you. At least you are now very clear that in case anybody thinks you're doing this for an appointment or for position, it's far from it. All right, Professor Pat Utomi, Professor of Political Economics, and the convener of Big Tent, joining us from the United States. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure.
We'll call on you again pretty soon. Okay, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll zoom to the Delta State politics. A few weeks ago, there was this literally an avalanche of movement, if you will, to the APC. But are all members of the APC in Delta State happy? That's a big question. And that answer will come after the break. Join us again.
Your family, no matter the condition, day or night, it's a minor pep. Not yourself, I know when my turn over daddy, mommy, auntie, and uncle. It's a minor pep. No matter who you are, a minor pep, turn over 10.
Amino Pep Fort contains 10 essential amino acids, multivitamins, minerals enriched with zinc.
No matter who you are, Amino Pep, turn over 10.
Amino Pep Fort from Seagreen Pharmaceuticals Limited.
Protects you and your family.
As a little girl, I lit up every room with my presence. But as I grew, a shadow crept in. Little by little, I began to retreat from the warmth I used to share. With each reflection, images stared right back at me, so much that I longed to find brightness once more. Just then, I found Cosmo. With every stroke, Cosmo was everything I needed to shine. Not just did Cosmo haircut products revive my hair, it reconnected me with the woman I had always aspired to be. From childhood dreams to grown-up goals, my radiance is reborn with healthy, luscious hair, thanks to Cosmo.
Cosmo, for the love of beauty, marketed and distributed by GVS Cosmetics.
Seeking advanced medical treatment abroad doesn't have to be stressful and overly expensive. Let Nexus Global Services Limited lead you to over 100 top hospitals and doctors in Turkey to experience high-quality care at unbeatable prices. We have the best team to ensure your journey is smooth and free from the burden of illness. We offer free consultation, visa assistance, air ambulance services, accommodation, and shopping arrangements. Our impressive success stories include treatments for cancer, knee replacement, kidney transplant, obesity surgery, and various medical conditions. Visit our office in Abuja at Maitama FCT, number 6A, Osara Close, or call us on 0707 309 0844. You can also check out our website www.nexusgsl.com to begin your healing journey today.
Special announcement. The House of Representatives, in collaboration with the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC, and with the support of the National Assembly Library Trust Fund, invites stakeholders and the public to the inaugural National Policy Dialogue on the legislative agenda of the 10th House as follows. Date, Monday, 12th May 2025. Time, 10 a.m. prompt. Venue, Congress Hall, Transcorp Hilton, Abuja. At the event, the Speaker, Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, PhD, GCON, will present the 10th House Midterm Report Card and engage with key stakeholders on national policy legislative priorities. All invited guests are to be seated by 9:30 a.m. Announcer, Honorable Akinrotimi Jr., House spokesperson, with support from the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO.
Hear that? It's the roar of the crowd, the pulse of champions, the sound of history being made. Ogun State is ready to host the biggest sporting event of the year, the 22nd National Sports Festival, Gateway Games Ogun 2024. From May 16th to 30th, 2025, the nation's finest athletes will gather at the MKO Abiola Stadium, Abeokuta, and other sports centers in Ogun State. 33 sports, 36 states, and the FCT. One goal: to rise, to compete, to win. The world is watching. This is our moment, our time to shine. The stage is set. Gateway Games Ogun 2024, a celebration of sports, unity, and culture. Host, His Excellency, Governor Dapo Abiodun. Ìgbéga ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn, àjọṣe gbogbo wa ni.
Welcome back. Politics is an interesting game, if you will. I talked about the fact that weeks ago, the governor, his deputy, and several other persons, literally the entire structure of the PDP, had moved in Delta State to the APC. But there are some persons in the APC who are, what I call it, raising, I'm not sure what to call it, objection or concern in that sense of what will be the fate of the party in the state, because everything looks like uhuru at the surface level. Let's bring in the Commissioner for Works and Public Information, Charles Aniago, joins us virtually. Mr. Charles, thank you so much for coming on the program. Also joining us is Mr. Collins Esalamo, is an APC leader in Delta State as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience. Let's make the most of the time we have. Brevity, they say, is the soul of wit. Mr. Esalamo, I'd listened to you where there's a categorical statement you made when raising your concern about the influx of the PDP members into your party. And that is to the effect that you said that Oborevwori the governor, who has the war chest, who has all the structure coming into your party, is not an asset. How is that possible?
Of course, it's not an asset. You see, this democracy is ambiguous in its definition. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people is a conventional definition of democracy that does not apply in the Delta State context or in the Nigerian context. Not until we derive a phenomenon that reconciles government's efficiency and its legitimacy, the authority that we have given to those who govern us through our ballot box, and our freedom. Those are the four fundamentals of democracy. And the application should come in that direction, with a common denominator that it should be corruption-free. You talk about structure. How do you define Oborevwori structure to APC? They are not definitive. I tell you one story. Like Pat Utomi, I sympathize with his predicament. Where was the National Publicity Secretary of APC when Pat Utomi escaped assassination during the Abacha junta? He was fighting for democracy. Because he associated with Abiola, they wanted to kill him, and he escaped assassination. The irony is that somebody like the National Publicity Secretary is accusing him of a shadow government. It's repulsive. Not only despotic, it's excruciating. Now I tell you about Oborevwori. At the time I said all its infrastructural developments can be equated to beautiful irrelevancies. And I advanced my reasons. The commissioner you have just called, I called him. And I told him that his claims were wrong, that the riverine area has been developed. The answer he gave was that they are ongoing projects. Then I said, the honor or the award being given to our governor, that was not the promise during his campaign, that he was going to be honored by Vanguard. And he told me categorically after my Vanguard interview that he was going to meet Vanguard to honor him, since I have criticized him through Vanguard newspaper. I thought he was joking. The next week, he was honored as the best infrastructural governor of the year. What is the infrastructural development in Delta State, if I may ask? He built 3 flyoverhead bridges, or whatever you call it, in a space of 400 meters, and is spending over 100 billion on that issue. The over 100 billion on building the infrastructure in a local government in a space of 400 meters. I blame the Attorney General of Delta State for him to have embarked on that project. What is that project all about? It's to ease traffic. And the project, the infrastructural development that is on that is on an illegal foundation. What I mean by illegal foundation is that the property on which those infrastructures are built belongs to the federal government. It was acquired by Obasanjo in 1978/79.
All right, Mr. Salama,
before the land use degree.
Let me come in for a moment. You know, I said the brevity is the soul of wit because of time. So if you can land on your thought as quickly as possible so we can have as many questions come through. Let me take it to Mr. Charles. Mr. Charles, the question I did ask him is about the fact that he has alluded to the fact that your governor, Sheriff Oborevwori, is not an asset coming into the APC. He was telling the president that, and that's why I had to ask him that question. You've listened to some of his conclusions. What are your thoughts?
Thank you very much, my brother. I am happy that he didn't answer your question. And that meant that I'm not even able to decipher his tendencies or the tendencies that he represents even in this interview. But to speak to the issues he has raised, because I've also had cause to listen to him in other platforms, I want to say that starting from the question you asked, that we have come into the APC with a view to broadening the spectrum of development in our state. We have also been able to open up our arms with respect to our brothers and sisters that we met in the APC. And so, of course, you do not expect that in one fell swoop, everybody will be on the same page. In the course of time, it's just like when you have pap, akamu, or something, what you call a custard, if you want to bring it the English way. And by the time you bring it out from fire, you mix it with water, and then you add milk. You will need to stir it before all of them will have the same flavor and, of course, the same color. So you expect that for us to come into the APC in the course of time, it will take time to have that kind of mixture where everybody will be on the same page. So I wish he was speaking to the issues of APC, because a while ago I listened to him even criticizing the spokesperson of the APC. So that's why I said I'm not very clear on the issue of the tendencies he represents in this interview. But also to respond quickly to the issues he raised about the bridges and what he says he's not sure we're doing. He is from a Burutu local government. Even in the course of time, he moved to Bomadi. I wouldn't know the reason why he did that. In Burutu local government, where I know his original place, we have built a number of roads, starting from the Ogulaha Okontu, and the number of roads that he talked about. He's very much aware of them. Ogbembiri is also in the riverine communities. We are also building the Bomadi Ohoro Road, which is about 47 kilometers. He is very much aware of those stretch. So if he talks about development, I'm happy to discuss that. He said the bridges we are building is 400 meters. Even one of the bridges is in excess of even the 400 meters he talked about. And we are building 4. Ask him if NRA Junction is just 400 meters away from a DSC roundabout. Ask him if PTI Junction is just 400 meters away from the NRM Junction. That he's talking roundabout that he's talking about. Also ask him if the PTI junction is also just 400 meters away from a DSC roundabout. So you know that he's not saying the truth. And in any case, my brother, we're not only just building bridges, we're also expanding the whole corridor. Everybody that comes into Delta have commended Governor Oborevwori on the strength of his infrastructural effort in the state. So I want to know where my brother Collins Eselemo stands, whether he's talking about movement into the APC or he's talking about infrastructure, so that we know what we're discussing. Perhaps you need to bring him back to the question you asked earlier.
All right, Mr.
Let
Charles,
us know the tendencies he represents in this interview.
Okay, let's Mr. Eselemo, so those are direct questions. So I will just repeat what you said, the tendencies you represent. And in addition to that, Mr. Eselemo, he is alluding to the fact that these are early days, so cohesion takes a bit of time because they met people there. What exactly is your grouse with this movement?
Let me take him on his strides. The roads that he mentioned in the riverine is very unfortunate, funny. They went to commission that road during the Okowa era. You know what they did? They took vehicles off the shores of Warri to go and commission a road in the riverine and brought the vehicles back. It's so funny. You spend over 20 million to take vehicles from Warri shores to where he had just mentioned, drive along the road, came back with these same vehicles to Warri. Of what economic effect is that? I am not talking about the distance between NRA Junction and PTI. I'm talking about the distance between a full roundabout to PTI, DSC roundabout.
All right, Mr. Eselemo, if I can come in, my apologies, my apologies. So,
he was telling you to ask me this question, so I'm just telling you.
Yes, so, but just go back to, you've taken a lot of time on it, got time. So, what is your grouse with their movement? I think you have a problem. What exactly is the issue?
My grouse is that if they are coming to APC, it should be conditional. They should leave their baggages in the warehouse of PDP. Among the baggages are over 500 billion indebtedness as the expense of Deltans. How are we going to pay this money? Is it APC that will pay the 450 billion that was inherited or borrowed? Those monies were sealed, signed, approved by the present governor when he was a rubber stamp speaker of the Delta State House of Assembly. You can't sever the present governor of Delta State, from Okoa, because all these monies that were borrowed was sent to the House for discussion, and he approved them. So he cannot claim innocence of that. So how do we do this? We didn't know what the 450 billion that was borrowed was used for. So let us know these things conditionally.
All right, Mr. Salama, let me take it to Mr. Charles. Let me take it to Mr. Charles.
We have inherited liabilities, and that is what we don't want in APC.
Mr. Charles, it's interesting. Let me come to you, Mr. Charles. Mr. Salama, just a moment. Let me take it to Mr. Charles. Mr. Charles, so ordinarily everybody who inherits a governor at that level as a political party is excited. But this looks like Mr. Salama and perhaps people he represents are not quite excited. So maybe you, when he says you must come with, keep your baggage of the PDP on one hand, and then on the other hand, this liability you're bringing, they're not ready for it. What exactly do you think it means? What are the conditions he's talking about here?
I wouldn't know what has happened to my brother Collins. He used to be much more coordinated in his views than what I'm hearing and seeing this evening. Because to be able to even speak to the issues you raise is a difficult thing for him as to what is his challenge with us coming into the PDP. And then now let me very quickly come to the picture he has painted, which is at variance with the reality. Nobody is owing 400 billion naira in data. Oborevwori, since he came into government as the governor of Delta State, has not borrowed a single dime. He has even paid well over 280 billion, both contractual and other forms of loans that were taken on account of bridging finance that we had even in the last administration. So I needed to know where he stands, because I don't know, he's running from one pillar to another one, so I cannot even understand the kind of argument he's making this evening. I had thought that he wanted to talk about the issue of movement into the APC, but the way he started attacking even the spokesperson of the APC makes me to become a little confused as to the tendencies he represents. Maybe he thought he was coming here to have a feed day, spew some lies or paint pictures that are at variance with reality, and then get away with blue murder. The fact is this: Oborevwori as a governor has brought in a whole lot of development to our state. Governor Okowa did not commission these projects he's talking about. There are the ones of Governor Okowa commissioned, like the Ogulaha road in Burutu local government, which is over 19.7 kilometers in the creeks. He also fails to realize that the people in the creeks have houses there. They have vehicles that they use in those places. He is saying of what economic importance. My brother, one of the reasons why we are not having challenges in terms of pipeline vandalism in Delta is because we took development to the creeks, where the bulk of the oil is being drilled. Initially, they would tell them development is on the pipeline. But rather than allowing the development to remain in the pipeline, our government, starting from the previous one and being deepened by the Oborevwori administration, took development to those places. He's saying of what economic importance. The reason why Delta is a very rich state in oil production is because of our brothers and sisters who live in the creeks. And he's saying, why do you have to go and develop those areas? You can imagine how he's reasoning. I am shocked that my brother, who is from the creeks, is asking why are we building roads.
Mr. Salama, Mr. Charles, just hold on. Let me take you, Mr. Salama. So 1 minute each. So, Mr. Salama, so they have moved their structures. I like to stay with the politics. I don't know why, but I like to stay with the politics. They have moved their structures. But
so that you become a little
just hold on, Mr. Charles. They have moved their structures. Is it that there's a new chairman of the APC who came from the PDP, or the ward level they've changed the leadership? What exactly is this change that is making you very uncomfortable?
Please let us go away from his orchestrated mentorship. We are not ready for that. We are for reality. The piece you see that has announced oil production is from the national. Tinubu has created more jobs in Delta State than even Oborevwori himself through Tantita and amnesty program and all that. He has created more jobs through Tantita, Tompolo, and other security agencies. It is not Oborevwori that is responsible for the increase in oil production.
All right, Mr. Salama, my apologies. My apologies. My apologies, Mr. Salama.
Let him not go into that. Let him not go into that at all. So it's not the responsibility of Oborevwori.
In 30 seconds, Mr. Salama, just hold on, so that we can make progress. We're totally out of time. In 30 seconds, you haven't given me a reason for your grouse. I have asked, is the party structure, has it been immobilized, the APC that they met? What exactly is the grouse? In 30 seconds, because we don't have time, so you can respond and we'll wrap up.
The grouse is that they should keep their baggages in the PDP warehouse. We don't want to inherit all these type of things. We are moving forward. It's distracting this discussion. What has that got to do with oil production? Oborevwori is not responsible.
Okay, Mr.
The president of this country is responsible. And he has created more jobs than Oborevwori.
Let me go back to Mr. Charles. Mr. Charles, just 10 seconds or 30 seconds, your landing thoughts.
For more than 5 years, we have been in number one in oil production. That precedes the existence of Tantita. And so that answers the issue of what he's talking about as to what effort we have made in our dear state and the effort that Oborevwori is deepening. Beyond that, we want to say that we are really making progress. We are moving forward. You heard the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development. We heard him that everybody has been able to comment. The leaders of the APC that we met have all agreed. So I need to understand the tendencies of Collins, my brother. Obviously, you can see that he appears not coordinated on what he wanted to talk about this evening. And I feel bad about that. I hope that after this interview, he can go back and look at himself, how he's moving from one pillar to the other, without even being able to answer the issues.
All right, gentlemen.
So maybe next time, if he becomes more coordinated, it becomes easier.
I don't want you to take anything personal. He has made his point. However he made the point, he has made his point. I just wanted some clarity. But Mr. Collins Eselemot, APC chieftain, Charles Aniongo, Commissioner for Works and Public Information. Gentlemen, I don't want anything personal. Let's just stay with the issues. Thank you for coming on the program. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And that's it on the program. Thank you for the time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Have yourself a beautiful weekend. Bye-bye.